Elaine, and this was our house that Mom and Dad bought, Will and Elaine Gentry, when I was about 3 years old. I remember distinctly moving here, and I was always very afraid of spiders because when we moved here, nobody had lived in the house for quite a few years. It was all grown up outside, lots of honeysuckle and weeds, and even garbage because a handicapped man lived here and they didn't take it to a garbage dump. So there was like old cans and things, not fresh food, but trash in the yard. So anyway, needless to say, the old house had a few spiders and things like that. And down the stairs, you can see there's a little plank that sticks out. That was where originally it was toward a front porch, and that was a window at one time, but obviously closed in very many years ago. But when we moved in, there was a black widow spider there. So going to bed at night, I never had a night light. I was always scared a lot because I was in a room, in a bed by myself. I was mostly in this room and my brother in that one, but then from time to time we would switch. I would be in that room and he would be in this one. But I like this one because I was in between Grandpa and Mom and Dad, and I felt safer that way. The floor, as you can see, is beautiful. It's forest pine. The house is very old and built in 1858. And until I was a junior in high school, the pine floors up here were unfinished. They were just as they were sawed, and so they were dirty as like a Florida barn would be, because with that many years of people living in it and whatever, and never having been finished or sanded down, they were quite dirty and rough. So you put on your shoes before you went across the floor, or you might get a splinter. But they finished up beautifully. And Dad put the Seal-Tex in and put some insulation in that year also when I was a junior in high school. But before then, we had the old windows with bubble glass. And I remember waking up a lot of times in the winter, and there would be frost on the inside of the window that you could scratch and write your name if you wanted to. My dad had sinus problems and whatever, and so he believed that heat bothered his sinuses. And the oil circulator was in the then living room, which was the room with the red and white wallpaper. And so he would shut the door between his bedroom, which was where the two bathrooms are now, and that room, so his sinuses would breathe better, which naturally cut off all the heat up here. So we didn't have any heat at night. Often to go to bed, Mom would take a half-gallon jug, fill it with very hot water, squeeze the lid tight, wrap it with a towel, put it in the bed so that our feet could touch the warm jug to go to sleep by. And in this room, it has a neat latch on the door for the old time. I just love the latch, it's really cute. And when I was about 8 or 10, Mom visited Uncle Everett. Uncle Everett Holder was the brother of Verlin Holder, Mom's dad. And when we were walking around the grounds that Sunday, Mom spied a little bed that was in the loft of a barn. And she asked about it, and come to find out it was the bed that Grandpa Holder was born in. It was the bed of Willis and Nancy Holder. And it was just in the barn. And Grandma asked if he didn't want it. Mom was in the barn. He said he didn't want it anymore. And she said, well, ask if any of your children want it, and if they don't, I'd like to have it. So he did ask, and he called Mom and said nobody wanted it. So she went and got it and had it refinished. And that's the bed that Jennifer has now for Max to sleep in. When they got the bed, they put it here, and she finished it in a cherry finish to match the antique dresser that was Granny Tucker's. Granny Tucker's dresser Mom bought from her for $10, and it was Granny Tucker's grandmother's dresser. I once asked her which grandmother, and Mom said, you know, I forgot to ask which one. So at any rate, we're not sure which grandmother owned it, but that's how old it is. This was a door at the time we moved. There was a flat roof on the kitchen. On that side of the house was the old kitchen, which had a rock fireplace and was put together with mud, and it was not safe. Dad had an expert come look at it, so Dad knocked down that old chimney and took the inside paneling from the room from the old kitchen, and where the two front porches, double porches were here, he built the kitchen that's downstairs and used that old wood from the other room to line the kitchen walls with so that it matched the rest of the house. And so this door went out on a flat roof, but then years later he made it slanted. But when I was a kid, it was flat, and that's where Mom dried fruit. We would go to Grandpa Holder's. Grandpa Holder had planted 5 acres of apple trees, so there were apple trees from the earliest to the latest. And we would get lots of apples, slice them up, put them out on a clean white sheet, and put cloth on top, or later screens that Daddy made with a little wood frame to keep the insects off, and dry our fruit out there. And then she would make dried apple moon pies, which I think you might have had. So this is upstairs. When I was a kid, we could have a fire in the fireplace, but later some of the rock bricks started falling, so we quit using the fireplace. And this is the roof of the other room that was built when I was a junior in high school. That's just the shell of the old kitchen was there until then. And when I was a junior in high school, he built this room, and it was a living room. So that's when we got the second living room.
Do you have any cats?
Cats? Oh, I had lots of cats.
Which windows do they come to?
Huh?
Did they come to a window?
No.
No. Okay.
We always had dogs and cats, and we had pigs. Daddy would raise one pig a year, generally. He would buy a small pig from someone, and we would feed it table scraps, and he would supplement that. And then he would kill a pig at least a year old, or sometimes 2 years old, once in the fall. You kill it in the fall when it's below freezing so that the meat doesn't rot before you can get it all processed. It generally took 3 days for us to process pig. We would can most of it. Daddy took bits to a local grocer, Mr. Wagner, who would mix up sausage, and then Mom and I would can sausage. To do that, she would fry sausage patties and then fill the canning jars with sausage patties and the grease that cooked out of them. And all the meat had to be processed in the pressure canner, so it took a lot of time to do that. We would also make lard. You cut all the bits of fat up into fairly small pieces, and about that big, and then you would boil it until it just boiled all the fat out of it, and you would put it in sterilized jars and seal them up that way. And what's left you would squeeze out in the cheesecloth, and those were called cracklings. So you could put those in your cornbread, and people thought crackling cornbread was really good. It was really just greasy cornbread. But lard was very healthy and good. And the best part was the country hams. Dad would make country ham, and he would mostly use salt. A lot of people use some sugar in it, but Dad would just use salt and black pepper. And I remember watching him. He would have like a board down at the granary, and he would take his large hands, just rub salt into the meat until he couldn't rub any more in. And he would bury it in salt, and he would check it every day and rub more salt into it and keep burying it in salt for about a week. And when it wouldn't absorb any more salt, then he would hang it up in a bag. He would wrap butcher paper around it, and then put clean white cloth around it, and then put a burlap sack around that, and he would tie it from the ceiling so that there couldn't be any mouse or anything like that to gnaw on it. And so it would hang down there, and usually for at least a year, sometimes 2 years.